Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and boy oh boy do I ever have quite the doozy for you guys today. I found myself a brand new set of Kid Galaxy figures, which are quite interesting and also apparently very bashful and shy, because whoever decided to come up with the way that they wanted to package these clearly was not thinking correctly, because almost every figure in this package is facing away from us rather than kind of facing out toward us, which is where they should be facing. But we have a set with 4 different articulated dinosaurs, well actually 3 dinosaurs, and we've got 1 Dimetrodon in here, but they're basically Papo figures that they've gone ahead and bootlegged, apparently, and then given articulation to. So if you ever wanted to have some of your Papo figures with articulation, besides jaw articulation anyway, I guess this might be the set for you. The set in general, once I saw it, I was like, that is so weird. I have never seen these before. Never saw, like the Carnotaurus from Papo articulated. So right away, of course, I'm intrigued. And then same deal for the Dimetrodon. It's just so strange to me that they would create something like this. And they actually had a different set there, which also featured the Carnotaurus, but I don't know if it's going to show me on the back. Oh yeah, there. Oh, wait, actually, this is a different set entirely. I did not see this one there, and now I kind of wish I had, because apparently the Papo Spinosaurus got the articulation treatment as well as their Allosaurus. I'm going to have to continue looking for these sets, because I would certainly like to grab that one and add to my collection, just because it's, again, so different, so unique. But there was actually a different set, which I don't see on here at all, because this is the set we are looking at, that featured the Schleich Brachiosaurus with articulation as well, and I forget now exactly what other figures were in that one. But I remember the Carno and the Brachiosaurus. I might have to go back and grab that set as well, just to review for you guys. And I actually think earlier I said that these were all Papo. I actually meant to say half Papo, half Schleich, because as you can see, these two are basically Schleich bootlegs. Those two are Papo bootlegs. But interesting set nonetheless, so let's go ahead, pop these out of the packaging, and we're going to check them out. So there we go. They're all sitting here now before us, and I must say, they're interesting. Not the best decisions were made with some of these. And in fact, Kid Galaxy often has screw holes in their figures. And Kid Galaxy also is pretty infamous, I would say, for bootlegging. They have bootlegged a lot of figures in their day. Mostly usually like stuff that's older, like Jurassic Park 3 figures and stuff. I've seen a lot of those in Kid Galaxy sets. But I don't really recall them bootlegging too many figures like this. Like, I don't usually see Schleich or Papo stuff in their sets. So a little bit bummed out that they decided to do that. A lot of the older sets, when I look at them and I'm like, okay, they bootlegged a figure, but the figure's retired, so it's not like it's the end of the world. It's bootlegging is terrible no matter what you do, but at least it's a figure that's retired. Nobody's trying to sell it anymore, so you're not really costing anybody money at that point. But here, they really are. They're bootlegging figures that are still readily available. However, I just could not help but grab these anyway, because I am a fan of articulated figures, and I'm also a fan of Papo and Schleich. So to have those figures, basically, kind of, sort of, obviously way uglier and way cheaper looking versions, but with articulation, it's just too intriguing for me to pass up. And again, some look okay, some look pretty terrible, but the only way to truly tell how awful they are is with a closer look, so let's go ahead and jump straight to it right now. So the first one we're going to take a look at here is the Dimetrodon. Now this is an obvious copy of the Schleich Dimetrodon, definitely that figure with a very different paint scheme. It's also been upsized quite drastically, like it's way bigger than the original version from Schleich. You can see though that the actual detail, oddly enough, doesn't look great, but doesn't look terrible. Like specifically in the head, it looks okay. The lower jaw you can definitely see is muted, but overall the detail is definitely not near as crisp as you would actually see on the Schleich version. The Schleich Dimetrodon, I actually really love that figure. So I was pretty intrigued once I saw this one. But again, the detail definitely isn't anywhere near as crisp as you see on the original Schleich. You can see primarily we've got like a yellowish tone of color, and then we've taken this blue. It's like a blue-green sort of tone, and they've dry brushed it over a lot of the bumpy scales moving through. You also have more of that coloration here on the upper part of the sail, as well as a very weird, very ugly dry brushing up here, which didn't do the figure any favors, that's for sure. They basically just made it look very ugly and childish up here on the top of the sail. We do still, of course, have an articulated jaw on the inside of the mouth. You can see we've got the tongue painted. The teeth actually don't really look like they have any color really for them. Maybe a slightly different tone of color, but not really something that's obvious. Kind of looks like the lower jaw actually is like an orangish tone for the teeth, and the teeth in the upper jaw don't really look like they have paintwork for them, which is very weird. But you can see the jaw doesn't work perfectly. That's the way it appears once it's closed. Obviously, it worked a lot nicer on the original Schleich version. You can see the eyes are painted sort of sloppily there with a yellow kind of, and then a black. It looks like they tried to put yellow, but then the black just completely almost like hid the yellowish tone that they had there, and then they just randomly ran some over the top of the eye. You can see the yellow more on this side, again with the black pupil. But the paintwork on this is definitely not good. It's pretty terrible. And when you come over here to what I would think would be the more dominant side of the figure, we've got screw holes over here. And I know that Kid Galaxy often has screw holes on their figures, but honestly, they should have put it over here. Like, this is the side that you would want to have the screw holes on because it would be hidden a little bit better. For some reason, they decided to put them over here. I don't know why. But as we move back, you do have leg articulation for this version of the Dimetrodon, and you definitely have some limited mobility for it because you can see that the jaw kind of blocks the leg from moving forward. Once you hit this point, the stomach stops it. You also have the rear leg, which can move a little bit more, but that's about as far forward as that goes. You have the opposing side again. Basically just swivels for the legs. This one can completely loop around. This one might be able to as well. Yeah, absolutely. So that at least has a little bit better articulation over there. And then you have a swivel for the tail. Again, Kid Galaxy definitely gave us a good bit of articulation on these guys. But the Dimetrodon is definitely interesting, we'll put it that way. It also has like a very slanted sail to it because of the positioning of the figure, but it's even more slanted than normal. Again, the Schleich version is absolutely a million times better than what we have for this one, but it's interesting. We've also got the Tyrannosaurus. Now, this is clearly the Papo running Rex, and again, just repainted, resized. It's a lot smaller than the Papo running Rex, and also given articulation. But you have like a dark grayish tone for the majority of the body. You can see we have like a pinkish tone for the eye and a black pupil. Interesting choice of color for the eye. You can see the same thing over here. The jaw does articulate, and it actually works a lot nicer on this than it did on that Dimetrodon. You can see the teeth are painted with a sort of like a light grayish tone, and then you do have a red for the tongue on the inside of the mouth. No coloration outside of that area. As you move back, you do have a spot of articulation in the neck of the T-Rex, just a swivel. You also have articulated arms, of course, which can go forward and back pretty decently. And again, we can't really comment on the sculpt or anything because they're not responsible for the sculpt or detail. That is Papo. That should get the credit for that. However, I will say that it definitely looks a lot more crisp on this T-Rex than it did on the Dimetrodon. Actually, also have nail paint here for the fingers. You can see they are painted with a black. As you move back, you can see a light gray here for the underbelly of the T-Rex as well. And again, you also have articulated legs, which kind of hit each other. Now they look like they're just swinging, but you can see forward and back. Same deal for the opposing leg. We do also have painted nails, yes, for the feet again, and we actually have dew claws painted as well, so gotta kind of give them a little bit of props, I guess. And then as you move back, you can see we've got another spot of articulation in the tail. Just a swivel, not very good. They should incorporate, if they're going to go ahead and articulate these guys, they should incorporate more articulated joints out onto the tail to give us, more articulation, because rather than the straight tail that we had with the original Papo version, this tail's ugly. It's got a really big bend in it. It ends very abruptly. It's also very short, so they butchered the tail of the T-Rex. And then again, on what I would think is the more dominant side of the figure, we are littered with screw holes. I don't understand the mentality to do that. It really ruins the figure, because when you look at it over here, it kind of looks fun, but then once you come over here, it just looks awful with those screw holes everywhere. So bad decisions were definitely made with these figures. Then we've got the Schleich Velociraptor. Again, the featherless version. Something with the Schleich figures, the detail doesn't look that great on these bootlegs. You can see the detail is super muted in some areas, really muted here in the neck region. And the jaws don't really work that great either. You can see the jaw, again, that's as far closed as it really gets. And that's about as far open as it gets. You can see the teeth are at least painted on this one. Actually painted, well, on the upper jaw painted pretty nicely. The lower jaw, not so much. You can, again, see the tongue is painted there on the inside of the mouth. We have like an orangish sort of brown tone for the underbelly. You've got a darker gray up here on the top. You have the eyes painted kind of okay. You know, they don't look terrible, I guess. Definitely not perfectly placed, but they're okay. You have a random little area of like a reddish tone here on the back of the neck as you move down. And again, in what I would say is the more dominant side, we've got the screw holes again returning. One in the stomach, one behind the thigh, and one in the neck. Again, giving this figure a very ugly appearance. We do, again, have that neck swivel articulation, though you can see that that neck looks super loose. Like, I don't know how I would fix that if that popped off. You also have the arms again that articulate just like the others, forward and back. Same deal for both. You can see the nails are painted with a black. They actually have a gloss coat added to them as well. So Kid Galaxy, even though they can't really go ahead and make their own figures apparently at times, they at least put a little bit of effort into certain aspects of the figures. But as you move back, you again have leg articulation for the raptor, forward and back. Same deal for both. You can see the nails again are painted here for the feet, not perfectly. You know, that one's not really painted all that nicely, but there is a nice gloss coat for those nails. And then you move out again, you've got the swivel articulation for the tail. The paintwork has kind of like a striping effect as well as you lead out. The tail has a strong curve as you lead down. Again, this side doesn't sport any screw holes on it at all, so it does look a lot better from this side, but overall, it's, again, probably the worst figure, actually, in this set, but not really a great figure to begin with. Even the original Schleich version wasn't all that good, but it's, again, interesting. That's pretty much all I can say for these. And then the one that I was looking forward to the most, the Carnotaurus. And what's weird is straight off the bat, I notice there's no painted eyes for this one. Like, not at all. No, same deal for this side. So apparently our Carnotaurus either has its eyes closed or can't see at all. So that's definitely not good for him. But you can see again the detail definitely looks, I think, a little better on this one. Again, with the Papo figures, it looks a little better than what you see on the Schleich bootlegs. But the paintwork is pretty ugly on this one. We do have a reddish tone, which I can appreciate. I do like the reds on Carnotaurus. But this gray that they have moving along the back is just super mega glossy and looks awful moving along. And I don't know why. It looks like the Carnotaurus just emerged from water. He's so soaking wet looking with that shine. We do, though, have an articulated jaw. The teeth are painted pretty nicely. The tongue's painted with a pinkish tone, and the jaw can actually go pretty wide. And then again, works really nicely. Definitely one of the best articulated jaws we have in this entire set. We've also got the neck articulation again with a swivel right there. As you move back, you do have arm articulation. The arms are like straight out, like he's trying to have his hand raised in class and he wants the teacher to call on him. But you can see, even though Carnotaurus didn't actually have claws on the hands, they are painted here on the Papo version. We again have the articulation in the legs, forward and back. And again, the detail doesn't look bad as you move through the legs. You've got the nails painted again, and we do have Dewclaw paint. They again sport a nice gloss coat to them, which is nice. And then you also again have the swivel tail. Same style of articulation for each and every one of these figures. The tail, yet again, seems very short on this one. They definitely shortened it up for some reason. I don't know why, but it has the same type of curls and stuff, similar to what we saw in the other ones. Also, what I remember on the original Papo Carno, I think it has that same look. We have screw holes on this one, of course, but at least they're on the lesser dominant side. You know, it's got the further away, like the back side of the Carnotaurus does hold the screw holes for this one. So that's a plus, at least for this figure, but the fact that we don't have eye paint is a negative as well. Regardless, again, these figures are absolutely not anything that's going to win any awards. Being bootlegs in general is definitely a downside, but the fact that they took Papo and Schleich figures like this and then gave them all the different articulated joints that Kid Galaxy usually has is very interesting to me. So I don't feel like we really need to measure them or anything. What I want to do is just compare the figures, these bootleg versions, with the originals. So first of all, we've got the Schleich Dimetrodon, and I have to reposition. The legs are like super touchy. The second you move it, the legs go and, they move on you. But here is the original Schleich version. So let's go ahead and actually reposition this just a little bit. And you can get a good idea at what the difference in size is. You can also see how much of a difference in quality you've got when it comes to the bootleg version compared to the original version. The original version is just honestly beautiful. I really love that Dimetrodon from Schleich. But you can see, again, a drastic decline in quality on the Kid Galaxy version. You can also see, again, a drastic difference in size between the Schleich version and this Kid Galaxy version. The Kid Galaxy version is actually quite massive in comparison. But as far as the Schleich Raptor goes, here is the original Schleich version of the Raptor with the Kid Galaxy version. Now you can see they've definitely differentiated the figure a little bit when it comes to the pose. They've altered it because you can see the Schleich version had a tilt with the head and stuff, and now with the Kid Galaxy version sporting neck articulation, we obviously have a different positioning for the head. You can also see that the tail is positioned differently on this version. It curls more so toward the dinosaur's right compared to the original version, but overall, you can very clearly see that this is a bootleg figure, but you can also see again that the figure has a major decline in quality, and just the overall, appearance of the skin texture and everything is just way more vibrant on the Schleich version. But also the fact that the Kid Galaxy version, yet again, is quite a bit larger than our Schleich version. You can see again pretty decent difference in size between these two figures. Then the size difference that might be the most massive, we have the Papo running T-Rex here, which you can see if I can get it to stand. The original brown one, for some reason, doesn't want to stand too much for me nowadays. It's like, I don't know if it warped or what over time, but it really does have some standing issues lately. But if you get the two here next to each other, you can very clearly see that this is definitely a bootleg of the Papo figure. But you can also see again that the size is pretty massively different. The original is way bigger than the Kid Galaxy version. That's the only time that that's going to happen in this set, because most of them are bigger than the originals, but in this case the T-Rex ended up being the smallest figure in the entire set, which is weird. It somehow is even smaller than a Dimetrodon. But you can also again see such a massive difference in quality here. The actual fine detail quality on this version doesn't look half bad from Kid Galaxy, but when you look at the actual Papo version, man, such a massive difference in the overall appearance, and especially when it comes to the paintwork. Obviously the Papo version is way better than our Kid Galaxy version. But for the final comparison, we've got the Carnotaurus as well. Again, the Papo and the Kid Galaxy versions, which you can see these two aren't all that far off from each other in size. Definitely a little bit, if you put the two side by side like that, you can see the Kid Galaxy version is a bit larger. At least the Papo version has eyes, though, painted on it, which is a plus for that figure. Again, same deal as all the others. Massive difference in quality, massive difference when it comes to the sculpt, the paint, everything. The only thing that this thing's got going for it is the fact that it has articulation, which is pretty cool. But again, in every one of these instances, the original defeats the bootleg, and that will always be the case if you ask me. No matter what figure you're going to get, the original is always going to be massively better than the bootleg. But again, in this instance, the only real appeal for these Kid Galaxy figures is the fact that they sport some interesting articulation. So I am a sucker for unique dinosaur collectibles, stuff that I see that I'm like, wow, that's different, that's pretty cool. And that's the reason why I grabbed this set, because it's very weird to me to see Papo figures with articulation like this. That's not really something that I ever thought I would see. So when I had seen these, especially considering there's a Carnotaurus involved, I grabbed the set right away. I was, of course interested in it. And now actually having them here, getting them out of the package, they're just as low quality and pretty terrible as I expected them to be. Actually, they're worse than your average Kid Galaxy figures. Some of the Kid Galaxy figures are kind of fun, and when they actually put forth a little effort and give you a sculpt that was created by them, they do create some really cool stuff. There are some very neat Kid Galaxy figures out there, but in instances like this, for some reason, when they go ahead and just bootleg other figures, they most often turn out pretty bad. In this set, I would say even worse than average, because when you go back and look at some of the older Kid Galaxy releases where they bootleg the JP3 Tyrannosaurus and the Spinosaurus and stuff, they still look pretty good, but these ones just are like very, very iffy as far as both the quality and paintwork and everything. I wish that Kid Galaxy would start to release their original figures here in the United States more often. The only time I've really seen that happen with some of their newer sculpts were with Members Mark, with Sam's Club. They released a set or two there with some of their newer figures, which I actually have. I've been meaning to review for a while because they had like a Majungasaurus and stuff in there that were pretty cool. But there's like a ton of other figures that they had created that they just never released here, and we continue to get these type of figures, which is weird, where we just keep getting bootlegs and stuff here in the United States. Hopefully we start to get some of that other stuff at some point soon. But again, it is still really interesting, really honestly cool to see the Papo and Schleich figures with articulation like this, just making them have a little bit more playability, I guess, to them rather than just being displayed. But again, the fact that they are bootlegs and not even really well done bootlegs definitely makes them a downside. I'm probably going to, if I find that set with the Spino, I definitely will pick that one up. I'm probably going to grab the other set that had the Schleich Brachiosaurus, even though these were kind of lesser quality than I was expecting. I still kind of want to see the other set and get a hold of it. If you guys want to see a review of that set as well, definitely let me know and I will try to go back and grab that. But otherwise, I'm very intrigued to hear your thoughts on these, so in the comments section, let me know what you think of this, and of course, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.